Welcome to the year anniversary episode of Terror in Tandem, a podcast about finding entertainment in the macabre. Each episode, we discuss the horror genre, from books to film to TV and beyond, sometimes even from the beyond. Hosted by the knowledgeable and lovable Laura and Richard Mathiasen. You can find us on Instagram at Terror in Tandem and online at terrorintandem.com.
Nicely done.
Oh, thank you. And
Hi.
happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Welcome to NPR Presents Terror in Tandem. Yes, we're very excited to let you all know that we are now brought to you by NPR.
I thought we were brought to you by Earwolf.
Both. Does Earwolf exist anymore?
I don't know.
I feel like they're always merging, changing names.
Yeah, good for them is what we're saying.
Congratulations to our new boss, Conan O'Brien.
No, we're still just doing it out of one of our many luxury properties.
Yeah,
and
sponsored by a variety of reputable and very real companies.
The reason for that is so that we never get caught taking someone else's internet.
And
we just have to keep moving properties.
You know, so we can bring you the straight truth.
Exactly. Right.
Oh, God.
The truth of this episode is we've been doing this 1 year.
1 year.
And this is episode 50.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, shit. Wow. We planned that. I mean, I obviously did. Perfectly planned it.
I did because I'm the producer.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, happy 50th and, anniversary and podversary and all that.
Well,
and
it's a 1 year anniversary. It's a 50th episode.
That too.
Yeah, you can just download this episode and not listen because we're just going to talk like this the whole time.
Basically.
Rambling and ranting.
Which is what I assume you're all tuning in for.
We are actually going to use this time to talk about why we started the podcast and what we've learned and some of the pros and cons and where we're hoping to take the pod next. So should we jump right in and talk about, the first point of business, which is why we started this business?
That's a really good idea. Why did we start this podcast? Because I have an idea.
Up until now, it's been none of your business, but it is our business, and we're making it your business.
Exactly. Our business is your business, which is your business, and it's ours.
So we started this podcast because we love each other, but that stopped.
And we wanted to test the limits of that.
Now that's over. As of today, I've hit the limit.
Oh, goodness.
You've pushed me.
Oh. Well, 50 episodes. It needed something big to happen.
So we initially started this podcast, honestly, because I had been pressuring my co-host for, I really want to say, years and years on collaborating on something creative.
Oh, that's true. And that's on me, folks. I didn't collaborate with you.
So what my initial recommendation to Richard was probably 10 years ago when blogs were like a bigger deal.
Oh, right.
I had proposed that we do like a movie review called, He Said, She Said.
Oh, I remember that.
Where we each write our perspective on the movie or TV show that we watched either together or separately.
And we didn't do that because we got a cease and desist from Kevin Bacon.
Well, we didn't do that because you did not want to.
Who was the other person in that movie?
Elizabeth Perkins.
Yes. Excellent. Good pull.
Thanks.
Hey, Liz Perkins.
She was also the pedophile in Big.
And yes, she was. I always like looking back now, the last scene where she's watching him walk away, turning into a kid, and she's like smiles, and has that, it's like a heartfelt moment. And I mean, it's tough to get over.
You took that kid's virginity.
Yeah, you did. And like at that moment, she's watching him morph back into a child.
And
she's just like, oh.
The clothes are dragging on the ground.
I mean, I'd be like, oh, God. Oh, my God. What do I got to get out of here. Fucking, I mean, it's an interesting moment that that was meant to be like heartfelt and sincere and like a nice moment.
Yeah.
And it's just visual evidence that you are a pederast. So anyway, happy anniversary.
This episode is going to need so much editing.
Oh, come on.
It's going to be our most edited episode.
It's perfect as is.
So
Coming
back
to you
to
live
why we
from
started.
NPR Studios.
You see how hard it is to corral this co-host of mine. So I had been sort of coming up with some ideas on how we could collaborate. The blog was one. Do you want to speak to why you didn't want to do that?
I don't remember, honestly. I really don't. I mean, when you said he said, she said, I was like, oh, shit, yeah, I remember that now. But I haven't thought about that in a while, and you're staring right at me. I'm sorry. This is terrible. I didn't realize this was going to be like Richard didn't do things.
We're gonna talk about how. Okay, so through the years, I had, come up with similar type ideas. I even think that I had tried to re-enliven the blog idea in maybe a different format. I thought we could like write letters to each other and publish them.
Oh, wow.
But none of those things really took hold until last year. I would say maybe mid-pandemic. We had, really talked about, actually, we had some Zoom game nights with our friends, with a group of friends.
Yeah, we had like a lot of people. We had a group. This was a little more than a year ago. This was like, especially during
mid-pandemic, I would say.
During the lockdown times, just getting together to avoid going insane. And it
like
was
early 2021.
Mostly just getting drunk on camera in front of your friends.
Yeah, but also like catching up with them and feeling some sort of sense of connection again.
Watching
because we had all been apart for so long.
Watching yourself visibly deteriorate over Zoom.
Well, that's just you.
Yeah. No, it's like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when he drinks from the wrong grail, just slowed down over like a year and a half.
Yeah, that was just you. Yeah. Everybody else is thriving. So one of our friends said, you guys should do a podcast.
Oh, thank you, friend.
And I was like, yeah, we should. But Richard never wants to collaborate with me.
And I immediately forgot about it.
So then I basically came up with a whole plan. I laid out almost a business plan.
Unbeknownst to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I had learned in the past not to ask you about my ideas.
Yeah, here's the secret. You just place me in front of something and I will do it. Like a monkey.
So what I ended up doing was coming up with a structure, a pretty loose structure, a business plan, and then I basically bought all of the recording equipment.
Yeah.
And said, I think we should do a podcast.
I came home one day.
And here is what the podcast will be about, and here are some of the ideas that I have. And then we sat down and we actually used index cards and wrote out a bunch of ideas for episodes.
Yeah, we plotted out, a few months worth.
Yep.
And
eventually scrapped all of that.
Honestly, our first episode that we recorded was inaudible. We have a whole episode that never got released because it sounds like we are in a tunnel being drowned by Pennywise.
Yeah, figuring out. So we'll get into like lessons learned and things like that.
Yeah, like how to do this.
But when we initially sat down and came up with some ideas, I think that it started to take shape a little bit better.
Oh, for sure.
Because we started to think about broader topics that we could explore specific films and books and TV shows from those topics.
Most of the episodes that we've done in the latter half have come from episodes we did in the first half. We they just organically grow out of ideas we have, while we're doing this.
We came up with the sort of broad topics and then some episode ideas. And then we just really determined, I don't know if you want to talk about like our commitment level and how we wanted to do a weekly podcast.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, there was definitely an element also of like Cortez burning the ships because you had bought all this stuff and I was like, oh, it's real. We got to do this. And I really launched into it. We didn't know anything. We had no idea how to do anything. I
didn't even know how to plug things in.
No,
I watched
was
so many YouTube videos.
Straight up, yeah, watching a thing, YouTube and like LinkedIn videos and things like that, and just started out doing everything wrong, and it sounded terrible, and then we freaked out and figured it out, and honestly, also big shout out to our awesome friends who, we have Carrie Denver, who wrote our intro music.
Yep. And
David Hispanic, who writes all of our other music, including...
also my brother.
Yeah. And my brother-in-law. For
those of you that might not know, my brother did all of the music and still continues to send
a very talented musician. Yeah. He
did our Octara
Fest. And we have...
our closing music and our commercial music.
We, I'd say... once a fortnight, I will throw down another bucket of fish heads and cabbage into the crawl space, and Dave throws out another tape, another demo, and if it's good, he'll get another bucket, and if it's bad,
I don't know if he eats fish though. I think he's vegetarian.
Listen, when you're in the crawl space, you eat what's in the bucket.
How is he producing music?
I put some other stuff in there.
Then why isn't he trying to contact somebody on the outside?
Through the power of music? Well, maybe he'll do that through one of like the next intro songs or something.
My brother is thriving on his own.
He's doing great
in the world
under the floorboards. But that was really helpful. Is having our dear friends collaborate with us and contribute, because I don't know, it's always better when you do things together, and it made me excited and made us excited, and
we made really all of our friends download.
Yeah, I mean,
whether they listen or not
grateful
is
for
irrelevant.
That too. Yeah.
But the downloading really gave us the boost that we needed to keep going.
Yeah. Hello, listeners from random other countries and states that we've never even met.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we don't tell
that
to
we
download.
Don't coerce you into listening. Thank
you. Wonderful taste, by the way.
One of the other
tell you're all
pieces
classy folks.
That you developed is your editing skills.
You can tell how professionally these are all edited. It's because I learned how to do it like real quick, because you said learn how to do this, so I did. Yeah. It's pretty simple. I mean, I don't really want to get into the nitty gritty because it is interesting to some, but probably to most people pretty fucking boring. But yeah, I mean, we do all of this ourselves, y'all. And we like to joke about our many luxury properties. And by joke, I mean we like to lord it over you, how many we have.
We don't have any.
How giant they are. But yeah, this is real homegrown shit. We do all of this ourselves. Our friends write the music. I do the mixing on my laptop. And Laura, produces and comes up with the ideas, does our social media. Laura does all the social media because I am essentially worse than your grandparents when it comes to that shit.
So I want to also give a shout out to Buzzsprout. That's who hosts our podcast.
Hello.
And they are incredible. Their customer service is amazing.
Yeah, they've really, really helped us out, especially in the early days when we couldn't figure out like the last couple of bugs.
It was really Apple how to figure out how to get it to Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, Apple's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, it takes a while. But, if you're going to start a podcast, plan your first episode release in advance, a couple of weeks, because it does take a while for those
It did.
streaming services.
Once
to
it was up
accept.
and running, everything was great though. But yeah, thanks Buzzsprout.
Yeah,
They really,
Buzzsprout has
like,
been
walked us
really
through it.
great.
We were like, hi, we know nothing.
Their interface is really easy to use.
Yeah.
It keeps track of, all of our episodes.
I like that it shows us,
where downloads are happening and how often.
So that's actually one of the reasons we did an episode on Jewish horror is because we noticed we had some people downloading from Israel, and we were like, all right, let's go into this topic that honestly isn't really explored enough in American media anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's just like one way that kind of stuff influences the direction we take,
One of the other things is with Buzzsprout now, there is the opportunity to do almost like a Patreon. So they have their own branch of paid additional content. And we're going to talk about where we want to go with our future.
Is the lowest contribution level called Sprout?
I don't think so.
And then it's like buds and
I think it's like
stems,
like
Bloom.
worker bee,
pollinator,
drone,
stamen, pestle.
But just in that sense, we have listeners in Germany, Australia, Israel, Mexico, Slovakia.
Hello.
And the UK. And of course the US.
Yeah.
So shout out to all of our listeners.
Just sit quietly while I offensively mimic all of your accents. That'll be fun.
Don't. So Richard taught himself how to do the, editing and sound mixing and
well, I mean, give yourself some credit. You are the one who hooked the electrodes up to me and set up the Pavlovian punishment system. And that really inspired me to do well.
So Richard learned how to do all the mixing and sound design and all kinds of, editing, which was really helpful. And I think one of the biggest intentions we had when we started this podcast was we really wanted it to sound good. We wanted the sound quality and
indeed
our recording to sound like we've been doing this for a while.
Because we know what we're doing.
Even though we've just admitted we had no clue what we were doing.
Oh, shit, was I recording that whole time?
Yes.
Yikes. So that's what that button does. Oh.
So, I think that overall it's been a great lesson of how to start a podcast without knowing how to start a podcast. We really fell into it.
Yeah.
We learned by mistakes.
And it's been nice to be able to make mistakes, honestly. Just do this on a sort of small scale and stumble along the way and learn and have the freedom to...
What's the biggest mistake that you've made?
Saying yes to this. Just kidding. In the early days of recording, just technical stuff, honestly. And there's a definite sense of guilt when you've put a lot of work into it and you can't use anything you just did because you made a technical mistake. So that sucked. I mean, I remember that in the early days of just really wanting to get my skills up to speed as quickly as possible because we were both ready and, I needed to get to a place where I could record a listenable and audible episode. So still working on the content and personality side of that, as you can all tell. But I think in this next year, I'd like to learn more than just the sort of basic template functions that I've got going down now. I've learned how to put out some episodes, but I want to broaden my skills a little bit.
You want to put some noises in?
Yeah, obviously, like a blowhorn or whatever those are called, like a slide whistle, all the classics. But maybe try out some new programs, apps, as they call them.
The biggest mistake that I made, thanks for asking, was I bought an expensive piece of recording equipment that was not appropriate for what we were doing.
Used it since the one time we tried to use it.
Yeah.
Which was frustrating.
Yes.
But we don't need it.
Yes.
So
which
if
is
anyone
why
needs
I am identified as a mistake. I'm saying it's a mistake. You don't need to keep telling me that I made this mistake.
No, but I'm not.
But it will come in handy when, and one of our plans in the future is to have guests. So that will absolutely come in handy.
Before we go into plans for the future, I was thinking about our formative horror experiences together. I was trying to think of
our entire marriage.
No, obviously. But no, even before that. So you and I met in 2005.
Yes.
And I was trying to think of the first horror movie you and I saw in the theater, and I think it might be The Strangers. No, in the theater.
Yeah, Eraserhead. We went to that special screening of Eraserhead in Albany, New York.
Was that the first one?
That we saw in a theater together? Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
We started with Eraserhead?
Well, we didn't start.
No, but I'm just saying, that's pretty... I mean, that's not an intro. I guess you and I jumped right in together. We were like, let's go watch the weirdest movie ever.
Movie we watched, because we watched that in either your apartment or mine. I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was.
I thought, because some of the early ones we saw were definitely The Strangers. Mm-hmm. Paranormal Activity.
Yep.
Was an early one. But damn, Eraserhead. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, we went with that guy with the glasses.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And yeah, there was a David Lynch retrospective at
the Spectrum 7.
Spectrum 7.
Yeah. Oh, shout out to the Spectrum 7, keeping me sane. Love that place.
Yeah. So we saw Eraserhead.
Yeah, that was fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because at the Spectrum a few years before that, when I was in college, I saw Mulholland Drive there.
Well, this wasn't necessary. I will say the first exchange. I mean, first of all, we met in a creative writing class.
Yeah.
In grad school, so we had already had that sort of love of books going for us,
and reading each other's clumsy writing.
And you had let me borrow the first season of Lost on DVD.
I did. Yeah.
Which I had not watched
on digital versatile disc.
And I think that I probably watched the entire season in one waking day.
Oh yeah, the discs were melted when you gave them back.
Because it was so good. I mean, I would say that's like horror adjacent, sci-fi. There's some horror elements to it.
That was one of the last shows I ever watched on TV, like regular old fucking TV. Tuning in, broadcast when it was on, not streaming it, not watching it later, but that was one of the last shows that I set time aside and tuned in on whatever night it was on.
Yeah. I mean, I do that for Succession now. I know it streams, but it does only come out once a week at 9 p.m.
I'm just saying, no, but that's still streaming though. That that was the...
but there is no TV to
I'm just
tune
saying
into.
that was the last, I feel like that was the last one. Yeah. I mean, those were some of our early forays. And then at some point early on, we decided to do director binges.
Yeah.
Because we did Argento and we did John Carpenter.
And then you were like, well, I want to see if you really like me and horror. So I'm going to show some Takashi Miike.
Oh, yeah. We did Takashi Miike too. That's pretty gross. Some of that stuff. That's where we discovered
my limits.
Well, not your limits, I would say, but because... I mean, it was funny. While you and I were starting to date and test each other out and learn things about each other and, the early stages of a relationship, we were also doing that with our horror movie interests. And that's where I think we learned where our tastes started to diverge a bit. Mm-hmm. Is why don't you talk about the kinds of horror that you're drawn towards?
I'm sure you can, if you've listened to this podcast for the past year, you probably know where I'm drawn
every episode
towards, but I'm definitely drawn towards real things that could really happen or that are plausible. Almost, the fear that exists in reality, in like actual experiences that people have.
Serial killers, stalkers.
Yeah, not being believed. Having, somebody watching you and you are the only one that sees them. But I also like, I do also like some teen driven, like I like a group of teens.
Yeah, like a good slasher type formula, like Friday the 13th.
Even when they're bad, I have to say I do enjoy them. Even if they're bad, I'm
like Sleepover Camp.
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp.
Sleepaway Camp. Shit, you're right. Oh damn, good one. Shout out to Felissa Rose.
I don't like gore for the sake of gore. A lot of noises.
You don't like when things get real squishy,
right?
Yeah. So that's one area you and I diverge. Is
also the slow burn that has.
Well, let's do one at a time. The one area where we diverge is when things get real juicy. You're not cool,
no.
And I don't mind that. I love trauma films and like Stuart Gordon and Brian Yuzna and like that kind of like Society and Reanimator, and I love splatter films if they're good. Not and you said something earlier, gore for the sake of gore. I'm not really into that either. I like it when it serves the narrative. I don't like when it's just, hey, look at what I can do. Look at how nasty I can be. Fine, that's not impressive to me. But when it serves the narrative, when it furthers the film, like Martyrs is one of the gnarliest movies I've ever seen, and the excessive uber violence of that French New Wave horror classic is in service to the narrative. It actually makes sense when you figure out what the fuck is going on in this movie, and it's an incredible movie. It's not one I necessarily want to watch again because it's really hard to sit through, but that is definitely one area where you and I split, and as a result, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do this with somebody that just likes exactly everything I like. I mean, some of the things we disagree on, and that's where the slow burn comes in. That is like the slow burn, The Witch, Hereditary, that kind of movie. That's where you and I really sharply diverge, because that is legit my favorite kind of horror movie, like my absolute favorite. The Exorcist is also a slow burn.
And there are some movies that I am convinced you'll like that you still haven't seen, like Mother.
I just haven't there's a lot on my list.
I know. I understand.
Scrolling through my to watch list is the longest movie you'll ever watch.
I would say we align better with horror TV shows. We typically watch those together.
Yeah, like Hannibal.
Yep.
You were in love with Hannibal.
Yeah. And then books, we diverge a bit because I read way more than you.
Oh, rude.
And you carefully select what horror.
It's carefully curated by my mind palace.
Yes. But I would say that you're probably the biggest horror movie watcher of our team.
That's what I bring to this table.
I'm the biggest horror book reader of our team.
Agreed.
And we probably are on the same level of TV shows.
Real world shit, like documentaries. You are a real documentary buff.
I do.
And always have been. Like you I remember when we first met, you came with this wealth of knowledge of like Errol Morris and stuff like that. And I was like, holy wow. I am not
Michelle Norris interviews Errol Morris. Don't worry, they address it.
It's 6 seasons in a movie. So I think I kind of remember discovering the slow burn Divergence was coming out of Robert Eggers' The Witch, because I had a beatific grin, stupor look on my dumb face, like I had just seen God, and you looked like you had just stepped in poop.
And I think that it started when we were sitting within the first half hour of We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Oh, yeah. We Need to Talk About Kevin. You fucking hated that movie.
I wanted to leave.
You were mad.
Yeah.
That was, we were just dating at that point, and I was legit worried that I had ruined it.
Yeah. You didn't, but
I did like that movie a lot.
I stayed and I watched it.
And in retrospect, it's not problematic at all.
Don't watch it, everybody.
It's worth a watch.
No,
it's interesting.
it really isn't.
Tilda Swinton's really great.
She is,
and
always.
Despite their challenges and difficulties, Ezra Miller is a gifted actor.
Just read what it's about. That's enough. There's enough of that going on in the real world.
You want to see John C. Reilly in a role that's not funny?
Yeah.
That's one.
So I think it started then.
As you can tell, we don't always agree.
We don't. But yeah, you really love those. And so, honestly, though, I'm going to say this about Richard to the rest of you, and you probably picked this up. Richard rarely dislikes movies.
Oh, I am very generous.
He loves movies for the sake of movies.
I'm really generous with my criticism.
He can appreciate all aspects of a movie.
There's only one kind of movie that makes me upset. Like that, because even a bad movie, I'll be like, well, you know what? You guys gave it a shot. I know how hard those things are to make, how much goes into them. Every movie that you watch is a goddamn miracle that it even happened at all. So even the crummy ones, you're just like, hey, swing and a miss. That's fine. The only kind of movie that I just can't get around is like a cynical movie, whether that's a movie that's cynical in its message, like it's just nihilistic. And you're like, okay, so your whole point is everything is awful and don't care. That's lazy. Or when a movie is cynical and it's like, it's a cash grab kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
yeah.
like, you can tell that nobody's heart is in this movie.
Like the now aborted Universal Dark Universe movies. You're like, you're literally telling me before the first movie comes out that you're planning to franchise this. And it's just like, what even is this? It's an action figure dressed up as a movie. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
But honestly, you're right. A problem I have with a lot of criticism is these quote unquote fandoms. I'm like, when you read through half of the reviews, you're like, wait, isn't this a thing we're supposed to like? Everyone is always upset and finding reasons to be upset. And I'm like, literally most of the pop culture I consume has never been, I don't know, maybe it's not that it's never been better, but there's never been more variety.
Yeah, almost like to a fault.
Oh, I agree. There's a saturation point
excess,
for sure, and we've hit it. And you can see already in the industry there's a contraction that's happening, and that's good.
I think what's important to note for our audience is we are not telling you what to like.
No,
we are telling you what we like and
hoping
how we feel about certain things.
If you might want to give it a shot,
right? I think what's really important when you consume any art, it's a personal experience.
Yeah, we really don't want to be gatekeepers. We're not interested in that. We don't like gatekeepers. We don't like the idea of being told how to like the thing you like.
And if the Rotten Tomatoes score is a 43 from the audience and critics is 45, that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I may not even know that we're going into it. I know that you're more in tune with those types of things.
I just need to know, is this movie about Jesus Christ? And is Kevin Sorbo in it? That's all. Is it produced by Kirk Cameron? I just want to know these things before I watch them.
Well, do you want to talk about what our favorite parts of making the pod is?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that ours are different.
Okay.
You go first.
Mine is it's sort of a twofer. It's all the new shit I learned doing this in the research. So I approach this, a little with my characteristic humility, basically being like, oh, I've seen every horror movie ever. So this is easy.
Should we back up and talk about our process then?
No. Okay. I think it's not interesting to anybody. We do some research and then we record a pod.
A lot of research. Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Especially me.
There is a ton of research and a ton of work that goes into this, for sure. And that has been a humbling experience, but it's also been amazing because in this thing that I already love and have a lot of knowledge about, I am constantly learning new things, and it's especially delightful for me, and that's not a word I use very often, when I learn it from you.
I would say the time that we spend getting ready and recording and producing and editing and publishing and promoting the pod is equivalent to a part-time job.
Absolutely. Oh, easily. Yeah.
That we're not getting paid for.
No. Stop sending us dead animals. Can't do anything with that.
But continue on with your favorite part.
It's especially great when I learn the new thing on the pod from you.
That you don't have to write your checks in cursive.
Whatever. So I'm not talking like basic, grown-up life lessons that I learned in my 40s. But yeah, like it's fun. I am not interested in knowing everything about something. What's the point? There's no excitement there. There's nothing to strive towards. There's nothing new around the corner. It is reassuring to me that this thing I've been into for multiple decades now continues to excite and interest and surprise me. That has been my favorite thing about doing this pod. And also, feel free to hit the 15-second forward button, but just doing it with you. It's been really great. Spending all this time together and doing something creative. And at the end of the day, we have something that we've made together.
Oh, that's so nice. That's what I wanted all along.
I really do love that.
That is not my favorite part. My favorite part of making the pod is actually writing and recording the commercials.
Speaking of which, do you think maybe we might attract some new sponsors this year?
I hope so.
I do too.
So for those of you that might fast forward past the commercials,
you should.
Well,
you're really missing out.
Regular podcasts, I do a lot.
On ours, though, you would be missing out on some quality products for the whole family.
So I was really insistent on commercials, that we write our own commercials about fake products.
Yeah.
And collectively, we have come up with all of the commercial ideas and products.
Yep.
And we record our own versions of them separately. We write and record our own.
You're really getting a glimpse behind the curtain now, folks.
And it's one of my favorite things because, as I mentioned, Richard and I met in grad school. But what you might not know is that we both have degrees, master's degrees in writing. So creatively, it's a way to write something that, first of all, is really dark. I have a very dark sense of humor. And also, I think it's hilarious. I think it's really, really funny. And
I love
fun.
it too.
It's one of my favorite aspects of the pod. And when I listen back to the podcast episodes, I constantly, first of all, the music that my brother created is so perfect.
Oh, I mean, Dave knocks it out of the park every time.
And I just love all of the silly, ridiculous things that we've come up with. And hopefully we'll keep coming up with more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, looking forward, we definitely have some interesting stuff that we're working on, some ideas for the future,
Well, let's talk about what we don't like about doing the podcast.
Okay.
Like, let's talk about, so we talked about what we do, what we love, like where things trip us up, for example, or, what we wish could be better.
For me, the only thing is just finding the time and energy sometimes.
Mine too.
It's I do love it and it does excite me, but the very real reality is after, you're working full time and doing other life things, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just straight up don't want it. Like, we didn't put an episode out last week because I had a medical procedure. Dr. Cronenberg was grafting multiple ears all over my body. And it took a few days to heal up. I'm still a little sore.
And he still doesn't listen.
Please. Oh, God, so loud. Please.
He still doesn't listen,
I have 50
everyone.
ears on me. I have told you to whisper.
I mean,
So-
I feel like you just came up with a new commercial idea.
Dr. Cronenberg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've been on the phone with the doctor ever since my procedure talking about bringing their business in.
Dr. Cronenberg's
that is-
body augmentation services will come to you.
That's the hardest part for me is sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready. But there are definitely weeks where I'm like, Jesus Christ, I am so tired and I'm in a bad mood and I didn't watch the movie I said I was going to, and I am wary of that because I never want this to become
Work.
yes.
I
This
don't
is
mind
what
if it becomes work that we're getting paid for, but we're not getting paid
We're not.
for it. So I want it to still be fun. And that's also something, I struggle with the same thing you do, which is making this a priority when we have all kinds of other things happening.
Yeah, like working and surviving.
Yeah.
Those take up time.
But also, social engagements and, when we have,
Yes, despite what you may think, I have those too.
yeah. So I think this pace of 50 episodes a year is a good one.
It's tough though.
It is tough.
Yeah.
And one of the other pieces that I had to sort of wean myself off of was checking the downloads,
Oh,
the
yeah?
stats.
I never do that.
I did initially because I really wanted to see it grow. And sadly, our podcast hasn't grown very much.
I've just been focused on trying to learn how to do this and get into a rhythm and, work out the kinks. I should probably pay attention to that.
Well,
side of
I think
things.
that's what we're going to pay attention to in the next year. So
Oh.
you had come up with next year and the year after what you hope for the podcast. And I think it is exactly in line with what my hopes are. So why don't you share those?
I would like to do a couple of things. I'd like to
So for the next year,
the next year I'd like to definitely improve my technical skills. But in terms of content, we're going to be doing some more. What I'd really like to do is hearkening back to our early days of Horror Connection, some director deep dives, which we did do a little bit of, but I want to do some more of those, some director deep dives, some retrospectives. I want to keep doing the make remakes because I really like those. Those are some of my favorites. Obviously, the monthly recommendations are a lot of fun to do, and they don't always work out, and I think that's fine. I want to I would like to bring in an interview here and there, maybe get involved something locally, or do something off premises. We'll see.
well, we have the equipment.
We do. Yeah, that we haven't really
big
used.
picture though, you had said that you want to spend this next year growing our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. We'd love to bring in some more listeners. We'd love to share our joys.
And we would also like to hear from you as, do you have episodes you want us to cover or books you want us to talk about, authors or TV shows?
Yeah, like we definitely are planning some more international themed episodes based on where people are listening from, so
And then going into the third year of the podcast, if we're so lucky, what we want to do is really set up a bonus content paid program.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We would really like to see, we would like to work harder at this and be able to provide more content. And
Watch along.
that happens with
games.
viewers like you.
Thank you for joining us at our telethon. The boards are lighting up.
But we're going to start to think about what episodes we would put behind a paywall and what bonus content we would do. So those are sort of what's to come. I would say, since you shared what you want to improve in the year to come, what I would like to work on is just really my overall like breadth of knowledge.
What would you like to work on this? Oh, I also wanted to work on my timing.
And just really, making sure that we have some content banked. That's one thing
That's
that
a great
we're not
idea.
great at.
Yeah.
We record, edit, and push out.
We're pod check to pod check over here.
Yeah. So I would like to have a little bit more banked episodes.
Call that a buffer.
But otherwise, I've had a lot of fun.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the live episodes at Madison Square Garden. Those are going to be off the chain.
We're never going to be on YouTube.
No, you will not see us do this because what is the God? I mean, it's a fucking podcast. That's the best part.
Yeah. But happy to hear any feedback from you all on what you want to hear, what you liked,
feedback,
what you didn't like, maybe
very
not
gentle.
so much what you didn't like.
Yeah.
Do you want to, before we sort of wrap up our final episode of our year anniversary, do you want to share what your favorite episode, or limit it to 2 episodes that we've ever done?
I really enjoyed the Suspiria remake because both of those movies were so fantastic and did such different things from each other. It was wonderful to watch 2 wildly divergent interpretations of the same story that both were phenomenal. So that was really exciting, and we watched the remake together. I think we watched the original together years ago. So obviously watching one of my all-time favorite movies again is always a joy. And I don't know. Some of our monthly episodes have been really fun. I really like when we get into like more philosophical discussions of, like, what is this? Why do people like this? I really like our international episodes, and I want to do more of those. And I maintain that, one of the best ways to both learn about and honor any people is through culture. That's what the purpose of it is to inform people and each other and yourselves of who you are. And honestly, in doing that, figure out who you are. It's both a journey and a sharing of that journey. I love doing international episodes because finding out through their horror movies a common theme of what scares a particular country, you can sort of track like, oh, this part of the world shares a fear of such and such. This part of the world, they make a lot of horror movies with this common theme, and you can sort of, I don't know, amateur sociological analysis, just gauge the fears of a culture, and that helps you gain some insight into them and their priorities. And
like when we did the Japan episode and we learned all about the forest.
There's a lot of Japanese horror movies, especially in the last 20 years, that focus on isolation, and loneliness. And that is actually
but like what the
epidemic.
Community participates in horror related in Japan.
Yeah.
Throughout Japan. It's really interesting that how much they embrace horror. It's as a country.
Well, there are,
or their delight are fascinated.
There are different attitudes towards death and the cycle of death and life in a country that's thousands of years old versus one like ours that's only a couple hundred years old. So yeah, that's been my favorite. How about you?
So my favorite, honestly, was the entirety of Octerrorfest.
Yeah, that was
I
a
love
blast.
doing that.
That was
We're
really
gonna
fun.
do that every year.
Octerrorfest Volume 2 coming at you October 2023.
But I really loved doing the Stephen King deep dive.
Yeah, the 4-part with a bonus part yet to come.
Yeah, we're gonna do a page to
Screen?
stage.
Yeah. Silver Stage. That's what they call it. The Silver Stage.
A book to look.
There you go. Book to look. Because it has to rhyme. It just has to.
And honestly, the most fun that I think we have is usually with the monthly recommendations because they're pretty loose.
I like it, honestly, sometimes when I recommend something that really stinks.
Yeah.
That just makes me laugh sometimes when I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then I end up watching and I'm like, oh, swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Shit.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
That kind of,
sure.
It definitely happens, but that's all part of it. That's all part of it. I would rather people make movies that don't work than, not make them at all.
Sometimes it's a bummer when I discover a movie after we've made our recommendations that's coming out that month that looks amazing.
That's
or a book or
another
something.
thing. The content glut is sometimes we've already recorded and like 2 movies that I should absolutely have been on my list. I just fucking learned about.
But that goes, I think one of the ideas for a behind the paywall type episode.
What did we miss?
Or what did we like? Our tops of the month.
All these things that everyone, I did want to mention one other thing I really like about doing this pod. It's also been a bit of a challenge is being recognized everywhere I go. I like it,
That's because your picture is up in like the post.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think that's a great place to end this episode.
Oh.
We just want to really thank you all.
Thank you for listening.
This is obviously we're doing this all for you
and for fun, and we hope you're having fun.
And we hope you still listen. And please, let us know. Send us a DM on Instagram at Terror in Tandem.
Slide right in there.
About what you would like to see on the pod, and keep listening and tell your friends.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Happy
See you
anniversary.
next year. Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our theme was written and performed by Carrie Denver, and all other music was written and performed by David Hispanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. We're static.